We will go to questions on the line now. And first question of the day will go to Rob Shaw from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Rob.
You mentioned not requiring environmental consultation and that type of thing. Is that because this is the exact same project that was proposed prior to the last election? And are you essentially promising to resurrect that project with all the studies and work that was done on that?
The last time this project was reviewed, it went through 13,000 pages of consultation and a full environmental assessment. The renewed project will operate within those terms, so that there's no need to go through the lengthy process of assessment and consultation. It'll be a project that has already been approved, where construction has already started, and where the NDP wrote off $95 million worth of work that had already taken place. That's not the way to build BC, so we're going to carry on with the project that was already underway and replace the Massey Tunnel with a proper bridge.
Do you have a follow-up, Rob?
Yes, thanks. Would it be tolled? And that was the plan for the previous bridge, and things have changed since then. But is the plan to toll drivers on this bridge?
There will be no toll on the Massey Tunnel bridge replacement. It'll be within the rules and the parameters of the original bridge proposal that was already under construction, and there will be no tolls on the Massey Tunnel bridge replacement.
Great, thank you. We will go to the next question, and that'll be Justin McElroy from CBC. Go ahead, Justin.
Hi, Andrew. Seeing the press release here, it promises additional $4.5 billion in transportation spending in the capital plan. I'm wondering how much of that $4.5 billion is taken up approximately by the Massey Tunnel.
The Massey Tunnel bridge replacement will not be cheap. And let's be clear, we had a $2.6 billion deal that was under construction, and now the bill is going to be higher. That difference could have been used to build long-term care facilities. It could have been used for other transit projects, but instead the NDP canceled the deal, and now we're going to have to sort out the price for the future bridge. It will be higher, but it's worth it, because we have to build that bridge to get BC moving again and to rebuild BC.
Do you have a follow-up, Justin?
Yeah, I guess because I didn't hear the number with how much of that $4.5 billion to extra would be in the Massey plan. So with the Massey plan presumably being the first priority, does that mean the Liberals won't be able to guarantee an extension of the SkyTrain line out to Langley or the Millennium line out to UBC?
So the question, Justin, this is important. These funds are in addition to the existing infrastructure plans, which were mostly put together by the BC Liberal government up to 2017. The NDP have built next to nothing. I have asked people all over this province to point to any NDP project that has been initiated that's actually under construction, and they can't think of any. This is a long track record of the NDP to announce projects and actually not do anything. They did it 12 times for the Abbotsford Hospital in the 90s, and you can't point to any hospital project under construction in BC since the NDP took over 3 years ago. We built 14 hospitals in our time in office, and we're proud of it. So to your question, Justin, the bulk of that budget will go, the new budget will go into the Massey Tunnel bridge replacement, but there will be extra money for other important projects throughout British Columbia.
Great, thank you. We'll go to the next question from Richard Zussman from Global News. Go ahead, Richard.
Andrew, in the legislature, you and your colleagues voted in favor of supporting $1.5 billion in pandemic relief. The NDP announced it before the election, and now we're getting the sense that that money is not getting to British Columbians due to the call of the election. Does that concern you that that money is not getting into the hands of British Columbians?
Well, this NDP government failed to come out with an economic plan in June and July like every other provincial government in Canada. They used it as an election trick. They announced their economic plan 3 days before calling an election, and the newspaper headlines today say that businesses are hanging on by a thread, and the civil service in Victoria has said there will be no rollout of these $2 billion that are available for an economic reconstruction plan. It's because there's an election. John Horgan called an unnecessary election to suit his own agenda, to give himself some job security in the middle of a pandemic, and has blocked the economic reconstruction of British Columbia. That is wrong.
Do you have a follow-up, Richard?
But what do you say to the businesses who were anticipating this money and are now being left to wait until potentially, into next year?
Well, there are some good quotes in the paper today from tourism businesses that are contemplating going into bankruptcy because they were hoping that there would be some relief from the provincial government in the economic recovery plan. Turns out they get nothing more than a consultation process that won't even start before Christmas. So if you've been in a business with next to no revenue so far in 2020, and you're told you'll get maybe a consultation process in January, chances are you're just going to pack it in. The NDP have completely failed the tourism and hospitality business in British Columbia by stringing them along until late September and then calling an election that blocks any relief for them. This is wrong. So it's time to get a government that's going to actually turn its mind to rebuilding BC, to restore confidence, to drop the sales tax for a year, to embark on a construction program and provide relief to tourism and hospitality.
Great, thanks. We'll go to the next question. Binder Sajan from CTV News. Go ahead, Binder.
Hi, Andrew. I just want to ask you about the Surrey police and the Liberals saying that they would take another look at what's going on there. McCallum, the mayor there, says it's an act of desperation. He says that the Liberals should not be interfering in the decision of an elected council, and he's worried about this setting a precedent for the province overriding other municipalities. What's your response to that?
Since this election was called, we've been knocking on doors all over Surrey, and the uniform response from people is they're worried about their economic future because Surrey is a small business community, and they're very worried about the cost of this new police force, and they have no idea what it's going to cost them. So having heard that input from people on the streets of Surrey and in their homes, we said, look, it's time for a pause. It's time to clarify the costs, let people in Surrey know what they're going to have to pay, and then have a referendum and let them decide. The Referendum Act of British Columbia provides that authority, and it seems to be a very reasonable response to the concerns of 500,000 people about how much they're going to have to pay.
Do you have a follow-up, Binder?
I do. Just on the George Massey, I'm just wondering, you're saying that construction would restart right away. When do you anticipate that this would be completed by, or can you make a commitment to when those first vehicles would be driving over that bridge?
The goal will be to restart the schedule as soon as possible after an election because the project's already been approved. $95 million has already been spent. There's already 6 kilometers of sand there to compact the surface to prepare it for the bridge construction. So this project can get underway promptly after an election, and then it'll take a couple of years to actually build the bridge. It was supposed to be in service in 2022, but instead we've had the NDP stall and obscure and come up with lame excuses as to why there should not be a bridge to replace the Massey Tunnel. It's not good enough. We need to build the Massey Tunnel bridge replacement as soon as possible to get rid of the worst traffic bottleneck in Western Canada. It can be done, and we will do it.
Great, thank you. We'll go to the next question. It's Adrian Blanc from CBC Radio Canada. Go ahead, Adrian.
Remember that during the debate around the bridge, there was much opposition about the bridge because they were saying it would have an environmental impact. So do you feel that there will be the same debate again, and what do you respond to people who are opposed to the bridge?
We should be very clear that the Pacific salmon are at great risk. And the worst possible thing you could do is to drive a great big tunnel under the Fraser and with all the disruption of the riverbed that would be involved. And that's exactly what the NDP plan to do. The Tsawwassen First Nation has said, forget it, which means 10 years in the courts fighting about whether or not to have a tunnel. The bridge has already been approved, it's already been through environmental assessment, and it's ready to go, and was actually under construction when the NDP took office and killed the project. We will restart the construction of the Massey Tunnel bridge replacement as soon as possible within the existing parameters to get BC moving again.
Do you have a follow-up, Adrian?
Yes, so can you tell us, if you become Premier, when will the bridge open?
Well, the construction plan originally was for it to open in 2022, and the NDP have delayed that by at least 3 years. So our goal obviously will be to restart the project and get it going as soon as possible, because if you've sat there for an hour and a half in the traffic waiting to get through that tunnel, You know this is a terrible thing for the people on both sides of the river. It's a terrible thing for commerce in British Columbia, and it needs to be fixed as soon as possible.
Great, thanks. We have time for a few more questions. Next question will go back to CTV Vancouver. Nafisa Kareem, you're on the line. Go ahead. Go ahead, CTV Vancouver.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. Binder asked my question. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, excellent. We will go next to Tom from the Surrey Now Leader. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, it's Tom Zateric. Hello, Mr. Wilkinson. If the Liberals form government, when and how will a referendum be held in Surrey on the policing transition, and what will the question be?
Well, the people of Surrey are entitled to know what the costs will be of this new police force concept. What we have said is get the costs out on the table, tell people what it will cost them, because we're hearing on the doorstep in Surrey that people are strapped for cash these days. And they're really not interested in having their existing fire services and community services compromised to pay for a new police force. That's a legitimate question. So tell them what the cost will be and then let them vote on it. The Referendum Act provides that authority, and that should be done as soon as possible.
Do you have a follow-up, Tom?
Yes. Do you have a kind of a time frame as to when the referendum would be if you take office? Would it be at the next civic election on the ballot, or what?
Well, the people of Surrey are entitled to know what's going on, and that information will have to be put out to the people of Surrey as soon as possible. And they'll have to figure out how it affects them personally, and then they'll have to make a decision. So the referendum would come after a public engagement process, which shouldn't take too much time. And so I'd expect the referendum would certainly happen sometime in the first half of 2021.
Great, thanks. We have time for one more question, and that will be from Rob Buffum from CTV News, Vancouver Island. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, hi, good morning. There's been some big sort of splashy announcements in the last few days from your party, whether it's the referendum in Surrey or today's large announcement in relation to the Massey tunnel replacement. What do you say to someone who says these are an effort, maybe a desperate effort to kind of move the dial? The polls have shown that your party is trailing, by a fair amount. What's your response to someone who says, that's the case?
Well, so many of the folks in the media world say the only poll that matters is the one on election day. And we've seen the history from past elections that certainly proved that to be true in the last decade. So what we're talking about is a positive plan for British Columbia, a way to restore confidence, and a way to rebuild BC. The projects we're talking about, whether it's removing sales tax for a year or building the Massey Tunnel Bridge replacement, these are things that British Columbians need to pull us out of this pandemic and get life moving again. These are essential to the future of British Columbia, and our view is let's get on with it. This winter is going to be bad, whether it's in the COVID count or whether it's in unemployment or just the sheer anxiety of not knowing where our society is going and where our economy is going. We want to give people confidence, to give them a plan, and that's what we're doing as this week rolls out with one announcement every day.
Do you have a follow-up, Rob?
Sure. On that note, is there a comparable or a large infrastructure announcement coming Vancouver Island's way later this week?
Well, today will be our infrastructure day, and details will be rolling out in our individual campaigns in the ridings, as each candidate will be given the chance to put forward proposals that a BC Liberal government would do in their community. Things like approaches to bridges, things like road expansions, things that are particular to the community, and also hospital issues. So it's going to be an interesting 10 days to come as we work up to the debate and we roll out our full program to restore that confidence that is lacking in BC right now and to get BC building again, because that's what we need to move into the post-pandemic world.
Great. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks, everyone.